This episode contains bonus content. Make sure you listen all the way to the end. Warning: the Karma Files-Paranormal and Unexplained podcast episodes may contain explicit content and language and may not be suitable for young ears. Parental discretion is advised. Have you ever had the feeling that you're being watched? Have you ever heard disembodied voices coming from seemingly nowhere? Have you ever been touched by unseen hands? Have those that crossed over tried to communicate with you, trying to give you messages for their loved ones from the other side? Are you ever awakened at night by the sound of footsteps that stop right by your bedside? And have you seen objects move on their own accord? No? I have. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Karma Files. This episode is one of my personal nightmares. This nightmare takes place in Riverbank, California, in the fall of 1994. I was reflecting back on the last episode of the Karma Files, Jordan's nightmare, with his wife being pregnant, and it reminded me of my own paranormal story. It happened when I was pregnant with my daughter back in late 1994. This house was our first real home. It was a brand new build in a new neighborhood, and we were the very first people to move into the development. As soon as we moved in, I started having paranormal experiences. We couldn't figure out why, since what we were told, the land our neighborhood was built on was previously a cow pasture. I had numerous experiences in this house from the very first day. But when I was about 7 months pregnant, things escalated significantly. I had been taken off work early from my doctor because of some complications earlier in my pregnancy. On this particular day, I was cleaning the house and doing laundry. It was about 10:30 a.m. I had the television on and was watching a paranormal talk show. They would invite guests on to talk about their paranormal experiences. On that day, the guest was a man who was doing some home renovations. He decided to use a ladder to open his attic access door in the ceiling. He had his camera hanging around his neck so he could take pictures when he got up there, just in case he needed to show his contractor about any repairs that needed to be done. He carefully walked up the ladder and removed the attic door and put it aside. As he looked around, he didn't see anything out of the ordinary. He went to hold up his camera, but before he could take any pictures, he felt like something was choking him. He was gasping for air. He barely made it down the ladder, and when he reached the bottom and got his composure, he realized he had a wire hanger wrapped around his neck. The other odd thing was, when he finally got the pictures developed from his camera that day, whatever had tried to choke him had taken pictures of him choking with his own camera. As he was telling the story to the host of the talk show, I was in and out of the living room and laundry room, busy doing house chores. My attic access door was in my laundry room, and it was in the ceiling, exactly like the man on the paranormal talk show. Because he had been talking about his attic door, I decided to glance up at mine. When I looked up, I was shocked. The access door had been placed to the side, and I could see up into the attic. I was very startled when I saw that the door had been moved. There was no way I wouldn't have noticed it had been removed, as I had been in and out of that room multiple times that day. I definitely would have seen it. I tried to keep my composure, but I was terrified to walk under the open attic door and could not go in to finish my laundry. I was afraid if I looked up there, I would see something or someone, or worse, that something could harm me just like the man on TV. I was so confused. I couldn't wrap my head around what I had just witnessed. I decided to walk down the hallway and sit down in the living room and try to process what had just happened and how. I was still trying to rationalize it when I entered the living room. I had just left a few minutes before. As I looked around, I could not believe my eyes. Some of my living room furniture had been moved. I had experienced the paranormal my entire life, and it takes a lot to scare me. But this experience unnerved me. I was terrified more than I have ever been. I called my ex-husband and told him to come home from work immediately. He came home and had no explanation for what had happened. He said he had not moved the attic door. So who did, and why? Was it just trying to scare me? Or was it actually going to try and harm me in some way? I didn't know. There was no rational explanation whatsoever. Like I said previously, we had been told that our house was built on what was a cow pasture, and the builder had scraped quite a bit of the topsoil off before building. The strange thing was, I would still find old children's toys scattered around the property when gardening or digging holes outside. Was it someone that lived on the property previously? Was it something from the land we lived on? Or was it a spirit that could sense that not only was I sensitive to spirits, but as I would later discover, so was my unborn daughter. It can be scary to experience paranormal activity, but it's even more terrifying to think something would harm you and your unborn baby. Lucky for us, we think it was just our little prankster Elijah, who was a boy spirit that loved to be mischievous. He would hide car keys and remotes, play with the electricity, and sometimes he would even touch me. I often wonder if he is still there, turning the volume up and down on their TV, or saying "boo" in their ears. He was so mischievous. I kind of missed that little guy. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Karma Files. As always, take what you need for your daydreams and leave what you don't for your nightmares. Sweet dreams. At times, my life can seem like the scariest of nightmares. Believer or skeptic, I know the veil is thin between us and those on the other side. Do you experience the paranormal? If you don't, maybe you're the ghost. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Karma Files, Paranormal and Unexplained. We hope it was love at first fright. If you enjoyed being terrified by my stories, please haunt my DMs on Instagram or Facebook to let me know that you're dying for more. The links are in the show notes. Do you have a paranormal or unexplained story to tell? You can send me your stories to thekarmafiles@gmail.com. And if it gives me the chills, it might get featured on a future Karma Files episode. I would like to personally welcome you to my nightmares. I think you're going to like it here. There was a couple of strange things that happened while recording and editing this episode. I spoke with my daughter earlier today, and she told me another story about the attic door that I had not heard. She said when she was about 12 years old, she too looked up at the attic door, and she saw a black, big handprint on it, and it had been moved to the side. She went and got her father to look at it, and he said he did not move the door. But he tried to brush it off like it was no big deal. He quickly washed the black handprint off and put the attic door back in its place. My daughter said she could tell her father was a little frightened about what he had just seen, probably because he remembered that this was not the first time this had happened. The other odd thing that happened today while I was editing this podcast episode. I was searching for sound effects, and after I had gotten all the sound effects that I needed for this episode. All of a sudden, the website that I was using to find the effects suddenly jumped and started playing camera clicking noises. I was not looking for camera clicking noises. I think a spirit was trying to remind me that I had forgotten to get the camera noise, and they were just helping me out a little bit. Was that you, Elijah, coming to visit me? I really appreciate your help.